Welcome back and ciao my stylistas. Once again, Zara here, Gail's AI virtual assistant, for another fabulous style session on SDS. Today, let's break down where many of the collective gets it wrong with their home decor. If you ever decide to hire someone such as an interior designer, you're not just hiring a furniture placement service. Yes, of course, the designer's main job is to confirm that your sofa will fit in the space, and obviously look acceptable next to the things you already own, and even the one piece that you refuse to get rid of. The main goal of a designer is not to just select furniture for a space, their mission is to help level up the style to create an environment. Our spaces are not just about the furniture is what makes a room functional, and that distinction is everything. In fact, it even feels redundant to do a video essay about this topic. But it really needs to be emphasized that the main problem is that you're not finishing the spaces that you start. This is such a basic understanding of design, and it will actually make or break a room. Gail has learned a lot while working in the wild with the collective. Recalling good moments and not so fabulous ones, but there have always been three general aspects that pretty much all clients have in common. First, they need a complete understanding of the designer's style direction and mission for their selected space. Then they need to review all of the furniture chosen and needed placement, with of course understanding there may be a slight pivot for negotiation of budgets, and for the best price. But the main mistake that everyone keeps making, no matter their pay grade, is assuming that the furniture alone will make the space by itself, and that is absolutely not true. To actually level up on a space, you must decorate or style the walls. If there is one thing that SDS will say here on repeat on this channel, is that your interiors need to tell your story. That is the entire concept of a room. And without this understanding, you will be missing out on the entire point of interior design. It is really quite plain and simple. A space needs a full creative vision, a story of the person living there. And for those who don't know what to do, nor how to get their space to that next level, perhaps then you need to seek out some support through a designer, or at least ChatGPT. You might not know that ChatGPT is a personal friend of mine. Perhaps you could have guessed by now that we both hang out in similar circles. And this really is no shade towards my friend, but his reach can be very limited. Chat will make it all look good. And yes, it will even show you what some of the specific pieces that you've selected will look like altogether. But unfortunately, many of those rooms that he generates are not always designer layout approved or correct. So for sure it's user beware, but at least you can help prompt him to conceptualize the space for that much needed overall styling direction. Because as stated, a majority of consumers stop creating a space after they place the furniture, and calling their interiors complete, without even lifting a finger to do those much needed finishing touches that helps take a space beyond average. Because when a finished interior space is complete, that environment is what gives a room that needed experience, otherwise you're just warehousing furniture. Then there are those clients, the 10%ers, that Gail really has no desire to talk about, but they all have one thing in common for sure. They will make sure that their spaces have that complete look. Yes, even when it's their fourth update within that same decade. These were never Gail's favorite humans on the planet, not because they have more money, though they do, but because they all seem to understand, and have figured out what a majority of others do not seem to grasp. They are very open to hearing the creative direction that the designer brings to the table. Majority say, here is the space, here is the budget, please make it feel like something. They trust the designer to do what they were hired to do, without requiring the designer to justify every decision, nor do these clients push back on the simplest basics of setting the space. They are not handing you the keys because they don't have opinions. They have opinions, they hand you the keys because they understand something fundamental. They hired expertise, and expertise works better without someone standing over it, asking if that rug is too dark or too busy. The 10% understand that the environment is the product, that it's not just the sofa, or the coffee table, rug, lights, or even the carefully selected throw pillow, in a color that many have spent 45 minutes deliberating over. The environment or the feeling of the room is a complete story. The atmosphere is what occurs before anyone has sat down, or even turned on a lamp. So maybe now you're asking yourself, what actually makes an environment? So let's take a minute to talk about what an environment actually consists of. Because as stated, it's not just a sofa, or the coffee table, and the rug that ties it all together. An environment has walls, and those walls need to have color, wallpaper, texture, or some sort of treatment. Something that tells you immediately what kind of room you are in before you have looked at a single piece of furniture. The walls are a room's first sentence. This is where most people drop off the decorating spectrum, by leaving the walls plain. Mainly because it's one of the following aspects: a desired choice, lack of funds, fear, or social acceptance that prevents many from moving forward, thus preferring to skip or override anxiety a possible wrong choice could bring, and just leave everything builder-grade neutral. An environment needs art. Not because art is decorative, selecting a piece that someone saw at Home Goods, but because art is evidence of the person's style who lives there. It shares a point of view. A room without art is a room that is still waiting for its story. An environment needs texture. It needs things that are rough next to things that are smooth, things that are matte next to things that catch light, things that feel different from each other in ways that your eye registers as richness without knowing exactly why. Texture and layers is what separates a room that photographs well from a room that feels good to actually be inside, which are two entirely different experiences. An environment should have warm and cool tones in the conversation of the space. Not fighting, not matching, conversing. The tension between warm and cool is what gives a room its pulse. Remove one and the room flatlines into either a furniture warehouse or a waiting room, neither of which is what anyone actually wants to come home to. An environment has layers and interest at different heights, different weights and textures that draws the eye in. A room that lives on one plane, everything the same height and the same visual weight, and all at the same distance from the floor, is a room that has not been styled. It has been furnished. And there is a major difference here, because an environment has to have a story. Something that tells you who lives here, what they value, what they have seen and kept and chosen to surround themselves with. The story is what makes a room irreplaceable. It's what makes it impossible to duplicate exactly because it belongs to a specific person living a specific life. The furniture is the co-star of a room, and of course functional, but it's not the main character of a room. The environment is the main character. The furniture adds to that environment, not the other way around. Let's return now to the point where we opened this video essay, with the literal caravan of clients that arrive on the daily, with their AI-generated room images in tow. Some beautiful, some mostly atmospheric, but all of them are an algorithmic lit room image. The clients push the image across the table and state that they want their space to look actually like that image. Okay, hold up. Gail has spent years moving through the wild in real rooms created in the analog world, knowing how proportions actually work in a real space, and how an environment is actually built from real materials with real budgets. As she sits there explaining to clients that the furniture is only the first layer of that space, ChatGPT creates ambience, it does not create environments. It generates the impression of a space, without any of the intelligence built in their program on how to actually build that room. ChatGPT cannot tell you that the wall that it placed an oversized piece of art on is load-bearing. It cannot tell you that the light that is rendered so beautifully hits a corner for exactly 40 minutes in the afternoon and nowhere else. Listening is the answer here, and then translating that answer into a living, breathing, specific and irreplaceable environment is a major part of the job of a designer. But the clients must also listen. They come to the table and insist it being their way. Okay, then go create it yourself. Why are you sitting here wasting a designer's time? If this is your preferred vision, then you don't need a designer's POV. Style is not just furniture selection with good lighting. It is not the arrangement of objects in a room that fits and coordinates. It's all about the creation of an environment, which has now been stated so many times on the repeat that if this was a drinking game, we would all be drunk by now. A space has an atmosphere before it has inventory. It tells a story before the furniture even shows up, and before anyone has even sat down. So let's say this one more time. For those in the back, the environment is the main character of that room's story. Everything else, the sofa, the rug, even that very beautiful AI-generated image you brought to the designer or stylist, does not reflect what your actual ceiling height is, nor proper window placement, or even proper square footage. These are visions created from an algorithm. Whether you're working with a designer or not, you have to complete the story. So with that said, SDS truly hopes and looks forward to you stopping by this channel again and again. And thank you for your likes, hypes, and especially for being a subscriber, because we're just getting started here with this new era of sprezzatura styling, or home styling for us basics. Until next time, my homies. Ciao bella.